Well, Bill, thank you so much for having us in your beautiful studio this morning. I am just so impressed with the atmosphere, the light. It's a wonderful place to be able to go to and paint these wonderful pieces that you do. So thank you very much for having us here today.
Thank you for coming. You're most welcome.
Well, thank you. You know, they call you the Sage of Sumner County.
And I hope that's an insult to Sumner County.
No, I tell you, you certainly do fill those shoes, and I know you were born here, right, in Sumner County?
Oh yeah, I've always loved Sumner County.
And I know that life has taken you through a few avenues. I know you started out in the world of financial with a CPA firm. And then you went on to work as the president of the Memorial Hospital Foundation.
Right.
And that is today the Memorial Foundation, which has done tremendous work for the community, for nonprofit organizations.
It's filled a need.
Certainly has filled a need. And you guys have, Memorial Foundation has given literally millions of dollars to people to really make a difference throughout North Nashville, Sumner County. It's been really spectacular.
Well, throughout Middle Tennessee, but especially to the north of the river, because that's where the hospital was, and that's where the basis of our fund was when we sold the hospital. So we've always preferred gifts to organizations north of the river, but we've given to the Symphony and Cheekwood and other things south of the river as well.
Well, also, you in your own right are very much a philanthropist. I know when you go into Pope John Paul High School, I know that above the library it says Bill Puryear, and that's quite an accomplishment in itself.
Well, I'm glad they got Claudia's name in there, because that was really her that helped us recruit Hans Brockman, who was such a factor in our success.
Well, I know you're certainly revered throughout the area for all that you have done and everything you're continuing to do. And for that, we all reap the rewards. That's definitely for sure. And I know history of the area, history of Tennessee is absolutely near and dear to your heart. And you have been a part of and written and illustrated many books, I think over 10 books in your lifetime. Is that correct?
That's correct. I've had a lifelong love affair with Sumner County, where I was born. And Walter Durham, a revered Tennessee historian, agrees with me that Sumner is where Middle Tennessee started. It really was the source of so much, because we had the river and we had the roads north and the roads east. So this was the first place of refuge for people coming across the mountains. As I've said, Andrew Jackson stopped here on his way across the Cumberland Plateau when they blazed the first trail directly across the plateau. And Louis Philippe, the later the King of France, after Napoleon, he stopped off here when he came through, and mentions this. And the roads to the west all came through Sumner County, and this was the first stop.
Well, that's just very intriguing and something I could literally spend hours talking to you about. Well, I know that through your writing and your creative genes that run so strongly through you, that you continued on from writing to painting, and I think you started painting a long time ago, right?
Well, it represents a real dilemma, because I want to do both.
Right.
And this is my assistant, Jessie here, Jessica Pavey Baker, and she helps me with the typing and the organization of my desk and my head. And it takes a lot of organization, because I'm a naturally messy person and I scatter all around.
Well, of course, you're creative, and that comes with it, I think, a lot of times. And how long have you been painting?
I've been painting since I came home from the Korean War, which was in 1955.
Okay. Well, and I see we're seated here by one of your most famous paintings. I know this is Bledsoe Fort,
Mm-hmm.
and the title of it is Bledsoe Fort, right? And I know that it's hanging at the Tennessee State Museum,
Right.
and also at Monthaven Arts and Cultural Center. You were featured in the Go West Young Man with this particular painting. And I think this is a second rendition, right? You have the original.
Yeah, that's the sketch up there, and this is the painting that I'm still working on, and will be for years, I guess.
Right.
Because,
Well, tell us just a little bit about this particular piece, if you would.
okay, these people came here from North Carolina. Most of them were holders of Revolutionary War land grants. That is, they fought at Kings Mountain and Guilford Courthouse and the other wars against the British in North Carolina. So when they came, they had nothing. They had what they could carry on a horse. So they couldn't carry much on a horse. Someone brought little two-wheel carts, but still you couldn't carry much because of the weight constraints. And they were coming through wilderness paths that were just paths with logs across them and muddy and over steep hills. But when they came, they built shelter for themselves, the first needs, and they had shelter, these original cabins here, and they had water. There was a spring down here. That spring is still here today. And if you go to Bledsoe Park, you ought to go down and see it. It's a beautiful, clear spring with no pollution in it at all. And then they had to have food, so you see them raising the corn, see the cornfield out there? And so they had those necessities. And their building materials were logs and stone. And they made their own concrete. They used buffalo hair to hold it together. And they created a civilization here in Middle Tennessee. And from it sprang the civilization that we're so proud of. And from it sprang the warriors that saved America. Literally, at the Battle of New Orleans, the Tennesseans were the main patriots there at New Orleans. And nobody questions the fact that Andrew Jackson and the Tennesseans were most responsible for the victory over the British. He was actually in the Revolutionary War as a 13-year-old boy. So to come back to Bledsoe Fort, here you see the construction methods. It looks a little like Lincoln logs, which it is. And I owe a lot to my consultant, David Wright, who's a historical artist, because he actually furnished some of the muscle and brain to build Manscou's Fort, which the replica stands in Moss Wright Park in Goodlettsville today. So this portrays the settlers coming across the mountains here to Bledsoe Fort, and they would settle around in the area, but at times, as in that painting behind you there, when the Indians were in the area, they had to retreat and all crowd into this crowded structure here and make do until things opened up again. So I portray here a lot of things going on: milking cows, tanning leather, cooking, molding bullets, washing clothes, shoeing horses, things that we today don't know how to do.
So would you say that basically history really has been probably a major motivator in your artwork? That's what you're drawn the most to?
Indeed, it has been. In history this old, there were no photographs around. So you have to portray it either from imagination or models. Most of these models here were participants in the reenactments. And so it gave me the information I needed to portray them.
Right. Now this is in oils, right?
Correct.
Is that what you predominantly prefer to work in, is with oils?
Back and forth. I love watercolor.
Oh yeah.
But there's certain things that don't, this is too big a painting for watercolor. So oil is a preferred medium, but oil is a lot messier than watercolor, and you see how messy my palette is here. But history is, I heard a quote the other day that said, a man that doesn't like history is doomed to spend his life as an infant. And it's true, because we integrate things and that become part of our personal history. So it's my goal to make us aware of who we are and where we came from and the things we did. Now these people may not have been any better people than we are, but they were challenged by the opportunities and the challenges that they had to survive here and to develop the land. I love Sumner County and its history.
How many hours do you spend now painting a day?
Well, I get in trouble if I tell you, because my daughter tells me to stay in bed till 6 o'clock. And I sneak around and get up at 3 o'clock because my brain turns on pretty early, what brain I have left. And my best working time is from 3 or 4 in the morning until about 11 o'clock. And then I'm absolutely worthless. I eat lunch and nod off. And, I may get a couple of hours late in the afternoon to do a few things and tidy up here and there and do some details.
Tell us about the studio, how you built it, because it's really quite spectacular. It's really an artist haven, there's no question about it. Tell us the design and what thoughts went into building this studio.
Well, I learned from a lot of other artists, just we do on history, and I figured that in order to have a spacious outlook, you had to get away from a low ceiling, because that limits not just the light, but your outlook on things. So I have a high ceiling here, and I had to have north light, and the reason for that is north light is the natural light. If you focus on southern light or eastern light or western light, there are times of the day you're going to have light streaming in that's going to distort color and make it impossible to paint in that light. You'll have to use shades and artificial lights. So these are 12 north lights, and so I never see shade, I never see the sun through those lights. It's always the same even north light. So that's two things. Then the third thing is an artist needs a lot of storage space. That central island has slots to put canvases in, both canvases that are painted and those that are blank. And then notice these drawers.
Right.
These are places for people to sit, my guests, and they're also storage for supplies. If you open that one up, you'll find small canvases. You open this one, you'll find electronics. You open that one over there, you'll find photos and slides. So that's thought out pretty well. Then we have a restroom over there for necessity, and it really works well. In the lighting system, you'll see that we have strings of lights here that can focus on paintings, because oil paints need more light than watercolors. Watercolor reflects its own light. And the gray walls, you don't want to overpower paintings with foreign color. So it's a very happy place.
And I know you're still writing along with painting.
I am.
And I know there's a talk of you working on the possibility of a of another book.
I'm working on it, and Jess is working on it with me. She's equally responsible. And this will be a book on the history of Middle Tennessee, the very exciting part of the history, which was how the Mississippi was opened up and how 3 of Tennesseans, with the help of a bunch of other Tennesseans, opened up this country from east of the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico, to the Rio Grande, and to the Pacific Ocean. So it made us a continental power. And those people were Andrew Jackson, you'd guess, Sam Houston, who came through here on his way to Texas, he was a Tennessean, and James K. Polk from Columbia, who took us to California and Washington and Oregon. That's not taught in school today.
Right.
So I intend to write a book on that, using what may be a lot of unpopular terms, which I'll justify, one of which is manifest destiny. And that term means different things to different people. But it would seem to be Tennessee's destiny to do this, to open the country up. And manifest implies a lot. That it was providential, religious, if you will, that we were meant to do it, and we performed. And Jackson and the Tennesseans performed at New Orleans, and the British, had they captured New Orleans, they would have owned the river. And the boundaries of the United States would have been the Mississippi River and the Tennessee-Alabama line until you got across the Appalachian Mountains and the seacoast states. So these Tennesseans tripled the size of America. And that needs to be told, even if Andrew Jackson's character now is being besmirched by iconoclasts who toppled his statue. They're toppling their own statues of Abraham Lincoln and George Washington and Jefferson. We need to get the truth on this, and that's what this book is called, Manifest Destiny. How Tennesseans tripled the size of America.
That is really interesting. And I know that's something that I'll certainly be looking for. And will the pages also be graced with your artwork, I take it?
Mine and David Wright's and some of the best historic artists in the world.
Wonderful.
But as Churchill said, when you start a book, it's a love affair. And when you work through it, it's a long, difficult marriage. And when you finally publish it, it's throw that devil out, you know. Have my life back. So I'm getting close to that point.
So I think then we are very clear to know that you're not slowing down in the least. You're now going to be working on a new book. You're continuing to paint.
Yeah.
And hopefully another art exhibit is in your future. I know, of course, Monthaven Arts and Cultural Center is looking forward to doing some work with you in another exhibition in 2022. Being in the pandemic that we've been in, we've had to reshuffle some things on our end, but we want to be able to have another exhibition with you and show some of your work. Maybe that'll even be the time we can do a book signing, a book release.
That'd be great.
That would be really terrific, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Timing would be good.
Let me point out one more thing that I think would be of interest to Tennesseans. You know what this stone is? It's Tennessee pink marble.
Oh, yes.
I was fortunate to have a part in a company that opened quarries in East Tennessee, one of them right next to John Severe's home. And this marble is used in 80% of the buildings in Washington, D.C. And from the quarry up there in around Severe's home in Knoxville, the Senate office building, the new Senate office building, is being fabricated from that stone.
With the pink Tennessee marble, huh?
Right.
That is great information. Yeah, we do have some incredible geography here in the state of Tennessee, some incredible, it's just, our land is really rich and beautiful and pristine.
And we were the southwesternmost state in 1803. You historians know that Thomas Jefferson bought Louisiana in the purchase of 1803, but it wasn't settled. And so we as the southwestern state were the thoroughfare for freedom, which is my second book, thoroughfare for freedom of opening up the entire Southwest and the West. It all came through Tennessee.
Well, Bill, you are truly the sage of Sumner County. We could sit and talk for hours, and you could teach me and everyone so much, and we really appreciate your time today. We are going to continue to talk to you in the future have conversations about your upcoming adventures and about the art that you're going to be working on, the pieces you're working on, and your book. So we'd like to say thank you for having us in your studio today.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.